Hello art beaters, Becky here, and I've got a brand new video for you today. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a leather wrap bracelet with gemstone beads and some silk cord to wrap around that leather. This is a great technique for making casual bracelets, really long wrap bracelets that you can wrap and stack around your wrist lots of times, or just, a simple little one-strander. And we're going to be using buttons for the closure, and I'll show you how to finish them up, how to make them. It's going to be a really good time. So join me in making a wonderful leather wrap bracelet with gemstones. So today we're going to be making this really beautiful leather wrap bracelet. This is a really great technique for making fun bracelets in all kinds of different colors, and you can make them one strand length, or you can keep going and make them really long so you can wrap them around your wrist a bunch of times. This is a really fun technique to customize with different cord colors, different beads, and different buttons for the closure. So for this bracelet, I used some braided bolo cord for my leather base, and some Griffin silk bead cord, and some really lovely Dakota Stones Hubei turquoise gemstone beads, which I just love the color variations in those beads. And for my button, I used a Tiara Cast Wild Wild West button, which I think is perfect with the turquoise. So that's really all you need to get started with this technique. You're going to need some cord for wrapping the beads around your leather. I've got Griffin silk bead cord. This is size 7. And when choosing your cord, you want to make sure you have a cord that's thin enough to pass through the bead twice, because you're going to have to pass through that bead twice to wrap them to the leather. So keep that in mind. My size 7 cord works perfectly with these gemstone beads because they have a larger stringing hole than that 0.75 millimeter diameter of the cord. So just keep that in mind and test. You can test your beads with your cord that you've chosen as well. Number 6, size 6 Griffin silk bead cord is another good versatile option to go for when starting out with this technique. You're going to need the beads that you want to use for your leather wrap bracelet as well. I've got more of those beautiful turquoise beads. The strands are a nice size, so this is how many beads I have left over after making this really pretty bracelet. So plenty of beads to keep going. You're going to need some leather cord. I have got 2 millimeter leather cord here. I used 3 millimeter braided cord here. You can switch up the sizes and colors of your leather to make a different look. And you're also going to need a button for your closure, and I've got a cute little Tiara Cast B button today. Okay, so to start, I am going to fold my leather cord in half, and I'm just going to string my button right on there and slide it down to the fold. That's another important note. Make sure that the shank on your button will fit over your leather. This one was a little bit of a tight fit, but I got it on. You can always trim the end of your leather to a point to make that easier if you have a tight fit as well. And then, like I said before, you're just going to slide that button all the way to the end, the center fold of your leather. And I'm going to knot that in place and just create just one knot to keep that button in place on the center of the leather. And I like to really get that knot tight and close to the button. Yeah, so that's how you start it off. Now we're going to start adding beads with our Griffin silk bead cord. So I'm going to start unspooling this cord from the card it comes on, and it comes with a little needle attached. So that's something to keep in mind if you're not using Griffin silk bead cord. If you're using some other type of cord or thread, you're also going to need a needle to use while you're weaving. But mine comes with a needle attached, which is so convenient. And I'm going to unspool all of my cord, and I'm also going to kind of just stretch it to get the kinks out. It makes working with it a little smoother. It's something I like to do when working with the silk cord. I do this when I'm knotting with it as well. You'll also notice that this needle that comes attached, the more you use it, it's going to get a little bent. It's going to get a little kinky. You can use your nylon nose pliers to straighten that out as you go. So I've got some nylon jaw pliers here. I'm just going to give that a little straighten so we're all prepped and ready to go for adding beads. There, a little bit straighter. Alright, so what I like to do to start off my wrap bracelet is I am just going to knot the end of this silk cord to the top of my bracelet, right by the knot that I just made by my button. Just to get it all in place. And we can trim up this knot in a minute here, but I'll show you how I like to start it. So just knot that in place, and then make sure it's good and tight. Slide it down as close to that knot as you can get it. And then I'm going to wrap this cord around both leather cords a couple of times. And then I like to just pass my needle through under those wraps that I just made. This gives it even a little more security and gets that color in there, the color of the cord in there a little more too on the ends. And you may have to fiddle a little bit to get your needle through those passes and out to the other side. There we go. And then just pull that through. You can pull on the tail and pull on your working thread, and that makes it really nice and tight. Now, when I'm done here, I can secure that knot with glue. Glues that we like to use that work well for this, Hypo Cement, Bead Fix, any quick drying adhesive that you have will do good. So you can trim that up, add glue, add adhesive to the knot, allow that to dry, and then it'll look a bit cleaner. I'm just gonna leave it there for now. But now we're ready to start adding some beads. Another thing I wanted to bring up, you can see that I'm just holding my piece in my hands. If you don't want to worry about holding your piece as you work, or if you're making a longer bracelet, you can tape your bracelet to your work surface, so that'll hold the bracelet in place while you're adding these beads, or use something like a macrame board that has notches on the ends to hold your bracelet in place while you're adding these beads to your leather wrap as well. So that's something to keep in mind as you're making these. Alright, so I'm ready to add my beads. So I've brought my cord under my bottom piece of leather and around so that it's positioned between the two cords. And now I'm going to slide a bead onto my silk using that needle there at the end. And I like to hold it in place on the leather as it would sit once you've got it wrapped in place. And then what you're going to do is bring your cord around that top leather cord, and then you're going to use that needle to bring it back down through the stringing hole of the bead. Once you've got it back down through the stringing hole of the bead, you're just going to pull until it is snug and tight on that top piece of leather. There you go, you've got your first wrap. And so then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of wrap that cord around the front of the leather to the back, and then we're going to add another bead in the same manner. Okay, I've got that bead added on my thread. I've brought my cord up and around that top piece of leather, and then I'm going to bring my needle back down through the stringing hole of the bead to loop that cord around that top piece of leather. So just pulling that cord tight around that top piece of leather there. There we go. And you can kind of adjust the beads to sit how you want to sit and then pull on the cord again. And then you've got your thread coming out of the bottom of the bead. You'll loop to the front of the cord around to the back, ready to add the next bead. It's as simple as that. You just keep going with that. Added my second bead to the cord. I've got my cord coming out of the top of that bead. I'm going to bring it up and around the top piece of leather and then back through that same stringing hole. And then pull through that stringing hole to loop the cord around that top piece of leather. And again, you can adjust the position of this bead, push it down closer to the bottom cord if you need to, and then pull on the top cord. And I'm ready to add the next bead, so I've got to bring my cord over and around that bottom piece of leather to position my cord in the center of the two leather strips, and then I'm ready to add the next bead. So you just keep going with that. And you can see how the choice of your cord color is going to affect the design. This gold color really is a nice contrast with the turquoise beads and also the darker leather. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your cord, that the color will be visible in your finished design. We've got our next bead on the cord. I'm bringing my cord around and over that top piece of leather and then back under the top piece of leather to loop it around that top piece of leather, and then going back through the stringing hole of the gemstone bead to secure that bead in place. And you can see that my positioning is a little off, so I'm just sliding it closer to its little neighbor bead there, pushing it down on the cord so it's closer to that bottom cord, pulling on the silk cord to tighten it up and get it in place. And we're ready to keep going. Moving and grooving. I'm going to bring my cord down over and around that bottom cord, so to position it in the middle between the two leather cords. Ready to add my next bead. Now, it is important to have even tension while you're adding these beads, or you'll start to see a curl develop in your bracelet. It'll kind of twist and curl to one side, and you want your bracelet to lay nice and flat and straight so it looks pretty. So as you work, if the stringing material is too tight on the upper cord, just spread the cords to loosen, and that's kind of what I'm doing when I'm positioning those cords. And you can see too that some of these, I'm working with gemstone beads, so the stringing hole sizes can vary, and some of them are a little tight, but that's not an issue usually. So if it's a little tight like it is now, I just use my pliers to kind of pull that needle out. There we go. If you're using beads with more consistent stringing holes, that shouldn't be a problem. And you can also, if you're unsure that it might get tight, go down a size in the cord. I'm using size 7. If I use size 6, it probably wouldn't be as big of an issue. But again, back with the tension, you want to keep tension even so your bracelet doesn't curl. And so that's what I'm kind of doing here as I'm adding these beads. I'm positioning them, I'm pulling on that top cord and adjusting to make sure the tension is nice and smooth. Really lovely colors going on here. Another thing too about varying bead hole sizes, sometimes maybe you run into a bead where you've checked your cord with some of your beads already, but maybe you run into a bead that's really pretty, but the stringing hole just doesn't work with your cord. You can also kind of use a bead reamer to clear it a little bit, especially with your gemstone beads. So I've just got a handheld bead reamer here, and you just insert that into the stringing hole. And I like to go through, give it a little twist from both ends, and that'll widen the stringing hole up a little bit more. And that can make it easier to pass that cord through a second time as well. So that's another good tip if you're using natural beads like gemstones where the stringing hole might vary. Have a bead reamer handy and your chain nose pliers handy to get through those tight spots. And you just keep going. And I like to position these too so the wraps in the cord are laying nice and straight too. If you don't pay attention, sometimes you can kind of see like this one's a little more slanted than these. Pay attention to that too if that's something you're going to care about, and then you can adjust as you go along. But it gets harder to do if you don't adjust them when they're right next to you. So pay attention to that as well. Ooh, this is looking pretty. So when you've approached the end of your bracelet, you've added all your beads, you're ready to finish up, what you would do is wrap that cord around both leather pieces like you did in the beginning. Wrap it around, slide it under the wraps, knot it, secure it with adhesive trim, and then tie a knot in both leather pieces. So you can see that I did that here. I'll open this up and show you. So I wrapped the leather, knotted it, secured it with glue, trimmed it, and then I did a big knot with both of the leather pieces over that finishing wrap of silk cord. And to make the loop for the button, I just kind of checked what kind of length I would need for the button by sliding my button between the two ends, kind of judged with my fingers where that knot would be, and just knotted the leather there, and then pulled really tight on that. You can secure these bigger knots with glue too, but they're pretty secure, pretty stable on their own because the leather is a rougher texture. It kind of just holds really easy on its own. And I just trimmed here, but you could make this an adjustable design by doing the same before trimming your leather, doing the same and making another loop closure with another knot and then trimming. So you could make this an adjustable design as well. All right, well, there you have it. That's how to make a leather wrap bracelet. Like I said before, you can experiment with all kinds of beads, different leather and cord colors, and you don't have to stop at just one strand bracelet. You can keep going and make these really long, chunky wraps. So really great jewelry technique, beautiful result that's super wearable, great for men's jewelry too. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope that you were able to learn a new technique, brush up on a technique you love but maybe forgot, and I hope that you are inspired to make some really pretty jewelry like the leather wrap bracelets that we made today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what kind of techniques you want to see next, and as always, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you're the first to know when videos like this one come out. Thanks again, and I will see you next time. Bye.